Great, so we had a look at the basic input fields up there, we learned about modifiers, and we learned how to set up a text area, so multi-line strings. Now it's time to come to more complicated inputs, though it's not that difficult to be honest, but I want to have these checkboxes here hooked up so that we can see if these are checked with true or false. And then thereafter we'll have a look at radio buttons and a drop down here. Well, let's start with the checkboxes first. Over in the HTML code, we see that here is the code responsible for the checkboxes. I do have two checkboxes, which are inputs here nested inside of a label. That is how we set it up in Bootstrap in this CSS framework I'm using here. And there we basically then have them, well, to look like they look here. The important thing now is we want to bind these inputs here to a specific model, to a specific property. To be very precise, what I want to achieve here is we're in the area of selecting which kind of mails we want to receive in this example, right? We can check the mail and the normal mail and then some info mails. And I want to add that both into one array because that would make sense to have one property storing an array of mails we want to receive. We could store it because, well, we got our values here. So we could simply store these strings in an array, and then once we loop through the array, well, we can easily see, okay, we got the send mail value and we get the send info mail value, or only one of the two. So that allows us to see which mails the user wants to receive. How can we tell Vue.js to do that for us, to add this to an array? Well, first of all, I'm going to set up the array down there. So after the message, I'm adding send mail, and this is an empty array by default because we haven't checked anything. And then I can go up to my checkboxes, and now I again add vModel, and the important thing is to add it to the input. So not to the surrounding label, not to the surrounding div, to the individual input. The model I want to bind to is, of course, send mail. So this property I just created down there, this array. And the same is true for the other input. I use the very same model here. So I'm binding two inputs to the same model. And what Vue.js will do for me is it will detect this. It will detect that, well, we got the same model here, that we got two checkboxes here, and will automatically merge the values of these checkboxes into this single array we set up there. So we can see this if I scroll down, and here where I output send mail, I want to output all the elements in the array. I already prepared a list item here where I can simply loop through all my items in the send mail array. So here item in send mail, and send mail of course refers to this array, the array again which I'm binding up here on my checkboxes. And with that I can simply loop through that and then here output the item to output all these strings saved in the array, so all the checkboxes checked. Well, let's see if that works as we want it to work. Now we can fit it on one page, and if I hit send mail, you see it's added down there to the list. And if I add send info mail, that is also added. And if I remove send mail, we only have send info mail. So this is how we can add the values of checkboxes to an array. And we can again tell Vue.js to use the same array, well, by simply using the same model here on our checkbox input fields. If we would have different models, different properties, well, we would store it in different properties, of course. But if you want that behavior, which is not that untypical if you got a group of checkboxes, this is how easy Vue.js makes it for you to use it like that.